FCTA president, who has also who will also be leaving the committee this year as she concludes her tenure as president of FCTA. So thank you both so much for participating in the committee and for your thoughtful conversations that we've had throughout the past years. So to get the meeting started, I would like to look at for the approval of the February 21st minute meetings.
I motion to approve the Friday, February 21st, 2025 OPEB meeting minutes.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, so we have those minutes are approved. So let's begin. I see Tanya is on the screen with the analysis of the investment performance for period ending March 31st.
Thank you, Heather. Good morning, everybody. Let me share my screen with the report. Okay, so the results through March are in this report. As I'm sure many of you know, things have changed a bit in the market since then. So when we look at the asset value as of 2 days ago, it looks much better than it did as of the end of March. But overall, not a terrible quarter for the fund, I would say. So U.S. equities, of course, were negative 4.3 for the quarter, given volatility around the uncertainty around trade policy. Of course, the announcement on the tariffs officially going into place did not happen until April 2nd, but there was a lot of volatility in the market, particularly in March, leading up to the belief that the announcement would come. International equities, though, both developed and emerging markets were positive for the quarter. So the EAFE index, which is international developed markets, up 6.9%, and emerging markets up 2.3%. We have exposure to both of those areas through our international equity manager. And then on the fixed income side, we saw, with the volatility in the equity market, the flight to safety in fixed income, bond yields did come down during the quarter. So if you look at the yield curve as of the end of December, and then the green line is as of the end of March, so you can see really everything after 1 year came down a bit, and bond returns were positive for the quarter. The Fed has met 3 times so far this year, and has decided to not make any changes to the short-term rates, and that Fed fund target rate is this green line here on the bottom of the page. So still at 4.25% to 4.5%. They haven't made any changes yet, given their continued view of uncertainty around tariff policy and how that might impact inflation. So, the aggregate index for the quarter returned 2.8%. This is an executive summary of the return, really everything I'll kind of talk about as we look through the report. So we started the calendar year or the quarter at $200.5 million, no cash flow, and negative investment loss of about $2 million. So ended at just at $198.4 million for the quarter. On a fiscal year to date basis, so 9 months into the fiscal year, we are up about 6.7 million from where we started. So a return so far for the fiscal year through March of 3.9%. For the quarter, the assets were down 1%. Our policy benchmark was down 0.5%. The primary reason for that difference is the underperformance of our international equity manager, American funds. They're up 2.6 for the quarter, trailing the benchmark, which was up 5.2%. Longer term, they've been kind of okay, I would say, slightly behind the benchmark on the 3-year basis, and since inception, which is just about 2 years. I'm sorry, 3 years, a little over 3 years. Our The majority of our equity assets are in U.S. equity, so with the Fidelity Total Market Index, so that's the exposure to the full U.S. equity markets, down 5% for the quarter. And then within fixed income, and again, this 40% allocation was increased at the end of 2024. So we had been 30% in fixed income and made a change to the asset allocation. So that's 40%. And that can move to a bit more of a conservative mix. Definitely helped during the quarter as fixed income was positive of 2.8%. Dodge & Cox is our active core manager. They've been in place for a while on the plan, and they've typically added value over time. PGIM, which is Prudential, is the newer manager that we just hired at really this quarter. So 1 quarter of performance there, right in line with the benchmark, and then the rest of the fixed income exposure is in an index fund as well with Fidelity. So American funds, their growth tilt has hurt them somewhat. Some of their country weightings versus the benchmark have hurt them over the last year or so. Their performance through this week has improved drastically during the year. So, when we were initially looking at the report, Kirsten and I were talking about, should we consider recommending putting them on watch list? And we said, well, it's been a pretty volatile time in the markets. Let's give them a bit of time and see, if they can rebound. So year to date through yesterday, they're up 10%, and that's pretty much right in line with the benchmark. So they're definitely improving and closing that gap that they had earlier in the year. So no recommendation to put that fund on watch list at this time. I will just bring us to a couple of other pages, the historical fiscal years you can see here. And as I said, current fiscal period so far up 3.9%. I would expect with the returns through yesterday that we're now up about 7% fiscal year to date. So about a month and a half left to go in the fiscal year, and hopefully the rebound that we've seen in the equity market continues, and our return stays favorable. And then let me bring you to this asset page. Really, this is quarter by quarter, and you can see kind of cash flows over the last few years, and then ending market value. So we've really had growth from even where we were 2-3 years ago. At 2 years ago, March of 2023, at 159 million. Today at just under 200 million. So significant growth in assets, which you can see in this net investment change column. Really with little to no cash flow during that time. So overall, I think that the policy decisions that you've made so far are working. We did, as we reported last quarter, finalize the documents for the commitment with Hamilton Lane Private Credit. They have not made any capital calls yet. We do expect they will make one probably later, if not the end of, by the end of the second quarter, then in the third quarter of this year is our expectation. And then I've kind of given you a preview, but assets as of the end of Wednesday night, I guess this would be 204 million versus where we were at the end of the quarter at 198 million. So quarter to date for the total fund, another 3% really, since we've seen a rebound in market performance since really May has driven that so far. There was quite a bit more volatility after the announcements of the tariffs on April 2nd. Of course, a lot of headlines since then of countries trying to, negotiate the policies with the U.S. And so seen improved performance since then. So again, on a fiscal year to date basis, I would estimate right now up about 7%. Any questions I can answer?
So I do have a question. So when you think about where we are positioned and the volatility that we've experienced in the last quarter, do we feel like we're in a place where we can contend if this volatility continues, or will it just be our assets distributed in such a way that we can weather, the volatility. That's just what I was, and that may be a question that you simply can't answer, depending
It's
on what happens. But I just was wondering, given I know that we are trying to be thoughtful in the distribution of assets so that we have opportunities to mitigate all of the risk, but that's just where
Yeah.
we are right now.
Yeah, it's a great question, Heather, and as you said, it's hard to forecast what will happen. But I think, moving 10% of the assets from equity to fixed income is already a huge step in the right direction. When we came on board and we kind of looked at that, we said, we think we need to dial down the risk there quite a bit, and this group made the decision to do that. So I think that's a huge improvement from where we were a couple of years ago. And then I think once we start moving some money into the private credit, that will also help because that will, sort of stabilize a bit more of the assets as well. Within, equity, I think particularly to be indexed in the U.S. equity space takes out any, risk of active management and active managers not doing as well as the markets or doing worse than the markets. For example, in a quarter like this, when stocks were down about 5%, it's been a very tough time for active managers. So that's a implementation decision where you've decided to take that risk component out of it, and I think that's wise as well. And longer term, we've gotten this same kind of question from pretty much every one of our clients. And, our recommendation is to stay the course and not, kind of make knee-jerk reactions to what we're seeing in the markets, because things do change, and they have changed quite a bit already. And, we wouldn't have recommended selling, when the market was down. If this is a long-term investment strategy and to be prudent over time, we want to stick with the guidelines that we've set, in the investment policy statement.
Thank you.
Of course.
Are there any other questions? All right, thanks, Tanya.
Of course.
So I wanted to provide an update on the budget. So as of right, so for those of you who are not spending every day in the budget like I do, we are in the process of finalizing the budget. We are still out of balance, so our board is looking to balance the budget, and we will be working towards that. We have to, by law, have our budget balanced by June 30th. We have our next board meeting next Wednesday. The county executive announced her budget in April, and she has included in her budget a one-time $1 million direct deposit into our OPEB trust. So that is part of her supplemental appropriation. Her budget by law has to be approved by the council by May 31st. So we will know by the end of May if that will be maintained in her budget. We anticipate that it will. So we're very excited that we will be able to at least have that $1 million deposit happening in next fiscal year. Originally, our board had, as you know, that our OPEB contribution in our operating budget has been zeroed out for the past few years. And our board added, before they submitted the budget to the county executive, a $1.6 million contribution. At the last meeting on May the 7th, the board reduced that contribution to $600,000. Because knowing that the county has $1 million, so that they would, if they're able to maintain the 600,000, we would get to the $1.6 million. So we'll see. Like I said, we do have a way to go, and we have about a $6.7 million gap to close. And so I'm unsure if that will stay in the budget, but at least we do have some positive news in regards to the county making that directed OPEB contribution to our trust. So at least we'll be seeing some contributions in fiscal year 26, even if our board isn't able to include that for the next fiscal year. But I just wanted to share that little bit of news because I think it's positive, because anytime we can make a contribution to the trust, we always want to. And I believe this year is also our year to complete our actuary study that we typically present to the board late November, early December. So that will be happening in next fiscal year. And we'll probably be revisiting the board's the resolution that the board made several years ago in regards to what they wanted to get the contribution amount to. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to move in that direction, but we will be going through another analysis this coming year. So that's what I had in regards to the update for the budget. Are there any questions regarding that? So that pretty much takes up our agenda for today.
Heather,
Oh, did I hear somebody ask a
Glenn,
question? Excuse
I
me?
have one question about the meetings.
Okay.
Did we want an in-person meeting, and when did they want to have the in-person meeting? It's at the bottom of their agenda. There are tentative dates, and we talked about possibly having the in-person in December, and we wanted to bring it up to the committee to see if that was the best date, or did we want to choose one of the other months to meet?
Thank you, Lynn. So
Uh-huh.
typically we have held our 4 meetings, and we usually hold one in person. And so in the past, it's always kind of been the last meeting of the year, but we made some decisions last year to move it, and we did it in November. So I don't know if anyone has any particular feelings about meeting in December, if that would continue to work for the group. I think
I'm
everybody's
fine either way.
Me as well. I'm good.
okay.
Yep, anything is fine with me.
Okay. So why don't at this time, the meetings at the bottom. So we have a meeting in September the 5th, December the 5th, February 20th, and then May 29th would be our final meeting of the year, of the fiscal year for next year. So we'll go with this schedule, and we will keep the December 5th meeting. That way we hopefully would not have any snow in December. So we wouldn't have to think about February having a snow date or something like that. So we'll maintain that. And I saw that Missy came on after we had started the meeting, and I wanted to just take the time at the beginning of the meeting. I thanked you, Missy, but you were not here. But wanted to take a moment to thank you for your service, not only to the committee, but to FCTA and FCPS. And Missy will be concluding her tenure as president of FCTA on June 30th. And the new president, Justin Hyde, will be joining our committee. I believe that's correct, Melissa.
That is correct. And thank you. And I was going to say, thank you for your leadership on this committee. We always run very smoothly and get through the agenda, but with all the information we need to make decisions. And so thank you for all the time. I know that's pre-work that you put in before we meet. And so I want to thank you for that. It has been a learning experience being on this committee. And I do appreciate the thoughtfulness of everyone on this committee to make sure we're doing what's best for our future retirees, which many of us on here are aspiring future retirees.
Excellent. All righty. If there's nothing else.
I just wanted to say one thing if I could.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you. So Christian Severe, who many of you have met, he wanted to be here today. He had a conflict. He will be here in September because I have a meeting conflict that day. And then he'll also be here in December. I will be out on maternity leave.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. Thank you. So I just wanted to let everybody know I'm not running away, but I'll be back in the new year.
Excellent. Well, that's wonderful. Excellent
Thank
news.
you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. All right, everyone. I do know that the board, Catherine Rich did post, because with Brian's departure, we will be getting another community member. So if you know of someone in the community who you think might be interested, please, believe the information is on our website and might be on board docs as well, but please encourage them to join the committee. We definitely appreciate having community members who have that investment knowledge that we do not have, because I think it's nice to have that expertise, and that's what we've gotten over the past few years from Brian. And so thank you all so much. And if we don't see you until we're closing out the school year and getting ready to start a new year. So thank you all so much for the hard work that we're getting through the end of the year here at FCPS. And with that, I will adjourn today's meeting.